Here we are, fiddling at the controls. What's new? British People's League. Yours truly, John Beattie, at the helm. And we have, there we go, we almost had a crooked queen. I have to speak loud because the volume on the webcam that any teenager can operate, Beattie boy can't quite get the hang of it. Hey, this is the Dinosaur News, and today is, as I squint my eyeballs, December the 5th. So we beat the deadline once a month. Dinosaur News brought to you by the British People's League. Yours truly, John Beattie, International Director. This is the second reading of our book, Canada's Secret Civil War, 1978 until, with a question mark. An unusual way to pronounce a book, but that's the way it's going to be, so be it. This is the second reading. We're actually continuing with Chapter 1. We thought we'd ended Chapter 1, but what we're about to read at the second reading is pertinent for the original chapter. So, continuation of Chapter 1. At the same time, oh, by the way, if you want the first reading, you're on the main page, so just click into November 6th. November 6th, YouTube. Dinosaur News was the first reading. Okay, start again. Continuing Chapter 1. At the same time, Pierre Trudeau thinks Canada is, quote, is a powder keg packed with racial and regional tension. We may be relatively poor in arms and battle equipment, but we are well supplied with all kinds of potentially explosive feelings. End quote mark. Pierre, quote, Toronto Sun, December 31st, 1978, from Jamaica. Now, what kind of weird statement is that from the Prime Minister of Canada? I'll repeat it, and I expect our typists will repeat it when the book is being typed. Quoting Pierre, Pierre Trudeau thinks Canada is a, quote, powder keg packed with racial and regional tension. We may be relatively poor in arms and battle equipment, but we are all supplied, we are well supplied with all kinds of potentially explosive feelings, end quote. Pierre Trudeau, quoted, Toronto Sun, December 31st, 1978, from Jamaica. Continuing the quote from Pierre. All these feelings may explode. All these feelings may explode at a time when the future of the country is being called into question, end quote. And that will be repeated in the book, too. I mean, think about it. It's a bombshell. Quotation from the Prime Minister. All these feelings may explode at a time. All these feelings may explode at a time when the future of the country is being called into question. End quote. Mr. Trudeau states all this while extending his stay hiding out in Jamaica. Gee, Jamaica's a black country, isn't it? As a matter of fact, one of Toronto's major newspapers over that wild and woolly 1978 Christmas period cartooned about the fact that not one person of the entire federal government Canada was in Canada. Oh, sure, allow for a couple going on holidays, but the entire cabinet? Come on. Tie it all in with the book, folks. Canada's Secret Civil War. They had all taken off for foreign lands, continued the newspaper's editorial cartoon. Hatfield fled as far as Africa to be safe. I guess Hatfield was the maritime representative in Trudeau's cabinet. So he fled to Africa. Individually, the earlier quotes from Trudeau and the snippet about Levesque don't mean much individually. Tied in with the British-Canadian Patriots flying out of Buttonville Airport, Ontario, heading for Quebec. Boxing Day, December 26, 1978, Canada's secret civil war is on. Where and how does John Beattie, the real John Beattie speaking to you right now, where and how does John Beattie get to tie in these strange clippings? You can either believe or not believe. I really don't care. You can believe or not believe the truth of any of this. Think about it. What does the short snippet about Levesque getting his nose unplugged mean, as we stressed earlier? Could French paratroopers be the French chimney sweeps, the sweepers? Would they be saving Levesque's life from the airplanes heading into Laurentians over Christmas week 1978? Sure, we referred to it earlier on in the chapter, and we refer to it again right now. We want to go slow and easy with you on these earlier chapters so you can really absorb the unbelievable. Throughout that beginning period at the end of 1978, into 1979, and the early 1980s, all kinds of weird clippings kept popping up in the public media. As deceased Archbishop Emmett Carter of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Toronto stated back then, quote, "If you don't know something is going on, then I do not know where you live." End quote, Toronto Star headline, March 1979. Another gem, if you dare to do the research. And yes, you do the research. We're not spelling it all out for you, just like this webpage. We don't bother putting links onto everything. You can do some of the research yourself. Most of you are watching these shows for free anyway. Donations come and go, but they've been slowed up again. Let's get back to the book dictation. Another gem, if you care to do the research. These clippings can only be explained, in fact, with a secret civil war going on in Canada. Reference none other than Ed Broadbent, then the national leader of the New Democratic Party, NDP. Toronto Star headline, April 28, 1979. Just into the Civil War by a few months, isn't it? So this is a quote, Toronto Star headline, April 28, 1979. Cartoon showing Broadbent raving to Joe Clark, the former Prime Minister of Canada, with Joe Clark jumping startled and Broadbent's eyeballs popped out. 2 words, Civil War, in a big exclamation mark. And again, folks, the reason we don't, I could, at some point on YouTube, to try and impress you, pull up the clippings and hold them up to the screen, and I may do that one day. But we're not going to fool around, even if the news media, the public, the pukey public media, knew that they couldn't win an injunction against us over news clippings. We're not taking the chance. We want this book published without an injunction. Injunction proof, as a good retired paralegal should do. So again, Civil War was the heading under the cartoon. So what have we so far? A few piddly news clips, and I'm supposed to convince you that a secret civil war was taking place in Canada. Only in Canada, you say? Name one other country in history, in the history of Western civilization, name one other country whose constitution was changed unilaterally without the will of the people and no shots fired. The threat of Quebec's secession, Trudeau changing the laws governing the very social fabric of Canada, and with all this, the British-Canadian elite is just supposed to sit back and smile? History and human nature do not respond this way at all, as I'm sure you would agree. Time now to exemplify some more detail. And I may be rehashing some earlier references at the beginning of chapter 1 of the book. Well, so be it. We want emphasis. Cancer killed my former wife Hazel in 1996. I have received permission from our only son to name her and her heroic tie-in, she being the go-between myself and our command structure over a period of years. In fact, I feel the stress of being caught in the middle of all of this is what gave her the cancer. She being the go-between myself and our command structure. In fact, we're going to have a photo of Hazel in Mother Britannia play that she was the star of as a youngster in public school in Horsham, Britain. Sussex by the sea, good old Sussex by the sea. She being the go-between myself and our command structure. Meetings were held in the boardroom of the Wellesley Hospital on Sherbourne Street, south of Bloor Street in downtown Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Coincidentally, the boys, from now on our command structure, will be referred to as the boys. The boys had my family tucked away, me included, tucked away exactly across the street from the hospital in the bunker building at 565 Sherbourne Street West, Sherbourne Street East, do forgive, 565 Sherbourne Street. Forget the East, forget the West. It's getting too much for me. It's pretty emotional reading this out, let me tell you. 565 Sherbourne Street, across from the Wellesley Hospital. We're in the 7th floor at a corner, and that building was a bunker, a cement bunker. Being employed as a highly respected charge nurse with great seniority at the Wellesley Hospital was rather convenient and expedient for the briefings to yours truly, passed on by Courier Hazel. So Hazel was briefed by the boys running our administrative legal attempt to put in a proper administration in Canada. And then after Hazel was briefed by the boys, she would then have to repeat it all to me. They wanted me kept fully informed at all times to at least have one constant flow in case they died before I did. And doubles of mine did die as well. Throw that in for you, especially my right-wing enemies who love to claim hysteria on the part of Beattie. The reason the right-wing weren't invited in on all this, that'll come up in another chapter. So many of the details can now be revealed. Hazel briefed myself daily, 7 days a week. Most Canadians would obviously think a hidden secret civil war would be impossible in our Dominion of Canada. Most hear the opening shots, the beginnings, verifying that I am off my rocker. Our evidence is produced, proof beyond doubt that actions of a secret civil war did take place in Canada, coast to coast, starting with the opening shots being fired on Boxing Day, 1978. Secret Civil War snippets, scenario, midnight explosions, mysterious daylight hydro blackouts in Canadian cities, overabundance of train derailments, including the Mississauga train derailment, suspicious fires, such as the Women's McGill Club building in Toronto and the historic Rideau Club building in Ottawa, both being burned to the ground. Former Prime Minister Joe Clark actually witnessed the Rideau Club burning from his Ottawa Parliament office window. A mysterious explosion at CFRB radio station in Toronto at the same time as unexplained massive holes in the plaster at Queen's Park, Ontario Government Building, Toronto. All this while Premier of Ontario William Bill Davis welcomes more than a dozen Soviet representatives into the legislature in Toronto, while nervous Ontario politicians applauded wildly. Pierre's sudden decision to resign after a midnight walk in the snow. Pierre's cabinet having all kinds of peculiar physical accidents. John Munro, Labour Minister from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, falling in his bathtub. Hospitalized for 8 days, by the way, with severe bruises. Don Jameson, Newfoundland Cabinet Minister, falling onto rocks with near death resulting. This is just scratching the surface. Pierre's retirement residence right across the street from the Cuban embassy in downtown Montreal, Quebec, Canada, for 20-hour, 24-hour protection perhaps. Obviously, two sides make for a Canadian Civil War, secret or not. Neither side wanted it acknowledged by the general public, as the Canadian dollar would have dropped to zilch value. To zilch. The Canadian dollar would have dropped to zilch value if it was known that there was a secret civil war going on in Canada. The only way each side could report to those on the edges of each camp as to goings-on was via mysteriously coded news clips intentionally inserted in the daily press, as referred to in the introduction herein. Wounded and dying from our side, the Patriot side, cared for at the Wellesley Hospital. Hazel caring for them as well. East of Yonge Street in downtown Toronto. Wounded from the multicolored enemy camp, cared for at a well-known hospital west of Yonge Street. Now that's the second reading of the book, Canada's Secret Civil War, 1978 until. Hard for you to swallow? Tough. Those who know it's true know it's true. Those that aren't sure can look up the research. We're going to continue with readings. At this point, it'll be one reading a month. That may change, but we'll take it at one reading per month till the whole book is read to you. Fed to you, pablum style. So that's the end of the second reading today, December 5th, 2015. At this point, we have to give our usual plug, our great, sincere, honest, warm plug for our friends in Britain, our fellow patriots, the publishing Candor magazine. They've updated their news, so click into their website and catch up to their updates. Candor, C-A-N-D-O-U-R, candor.org.uk, candor.org.uk. Keep it legal. God save the Queen.